Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Mondays with Marty. I'm holding these events every Monday from noon to 12:30 Central Time. And I just wanted to thank all of you who sent in questions in advance. I'm going to try to get to as many of them as I can. This is an opportunity for anybody to ask questions of any type regarding your job search, and an opportunity to hear from an individual who's had a lot of experience with job searches, but also who's been coaching thousands of individuals to move on to the next stage in their career. So before I get into all of the questions that I've already received, and by the way, any of you, if you have a question during the course of the next 30 minutes, please do not hesitate to chat it into the chat section, and I'll be reading those from time to time, and I'll take a look, okay? So let me just cover a couple quick things here before I move on to the specific questions. A real quick reminder to all of you. Please take advantage of the NSENG membership if you have not already. It's free. You get access to 3 webinar recordings of 60 and 90 minutes in length, and you're going to get the opportunity to network with 94 individuals from this organization. We've, by the way, had over 500 members land new jobs in 2021, and I'd love to see one of you and many of you become, part of that statistic in 2022. If you haven't yet joined our LinkedIn group, please do so. There are a lot of jobs that are advertised up there. We have a lot of discussions going on between folks that have landed, folks that are looking to land on different kinds of, things that they're trying, and would love to hear, some discussion between you and other members of the group. I've got a portfolio of 20 different recordings. Some of these are 30-minute webinar workshop recordings, and some of them are hour-and-a-half webinars on all different topics. Please just go to the website and take a look. Here's a few of our upcoming events, and I just wanted to mention a few of them here. On Wednesday, May 11th, I'm going to be conducting a 3-hour online workshop on how to create and implement an effective job search plan. I'm going to cover 25 different things that you absolutely have to have in play, that you've got to have done well in order to really make most effective use of your search. And quite honestly, there are a lot of people that are missing pieces. So we're going to cover all of them, and at the same time talk about specific things that you can do with every one of those. Then on Thursday, May 26th, there'll be an hour-and-a-half webinar that I'll be conducting on how to create an applicant tracking system version of your resume, because 70% of the people that apply to jobs online get eliminated, unbeknownst to them, because they either don't have the right keywords or they have formatted their resume incorrectly. And applicant tracking systems are nothing more than a piece of software, but you've got to be in line with the guidelines that have been established. And by the way, there's over 30 different tracking systems, so there's no one way in which to beat all of them. But I'm a believer that you've got to get down to the lowest common denominator, so you significantly increase your chances of passing through all of them. If any of you feel at any point in time you're in need of some external help, I do a great deal of coaching. I do coaching packages that have been set up and can be purchased right on the website. And I do an awful lot of one-on-one customized coaching to anything that you may have a need for in your job search. So please do not hesitate to reach out to me and let me know if there's anything that I can do to help you. So quick reminders: join NSENG, join our LinkedIn group, initiate conversations with other members, check out the free webcast and portfolio of podcast interviews that I've done, and check out the upcoming events in the form of webinars and workshops. And there's just a tremendous portfolio of all of these. Now, any job search topic is open game here, so please don't hesitate to go ahead and text in the chat any question that you may have. But I'm going to go ahead and start with those folks that took the initiative and went ahead and sent me some questions. So let's start right off here with the very first one. How does one talk about new skills that they've learned from different jobs that they've had? I don't see that as a tough issue. The fact is that there are many of you that have had anywhere from 3 to 8 different jobs during the course of your career, and in every one of those you've gained something. And it doesn't matter if it's come from a different industry or in a different job function. They are all added value. So the way in which to describe, what you've learned is through the things that you've accomplished along the way. To me, that's the greatest proof. So I urge you to take an inventory of the skills that you had in each one of your jobs. And they need to be coming through in your resume and your LinkedIn profile, because it is the total package and not what you've done only in your most recent role. Here's an interesting question. I've worked in some pretty toxic environments for the past 2 jobs, and I'd like to ensure that my next move into a company culture is one where I'm going to be happy. Is there a way to find out what a company's culture is really like beforehand? I can tell you that probably, in my mind, the best way to find out about a company's culture is to look at people that are in your network that are either working in some of those companies or people that are connected to somebody who's working in one of those companies, because the best way to find out about a company's culture is not through a job interview. The companies are putting on their best faceplate, and so they're not going to tell you about, bad things that are going on in the company or problems that they've had. But people on the inside are absolutely open to sharing that information with you oftentimes. So while you may not have a connection into company XYZ, you may have a connection who is connected to somebody in XYZ, and therefore that person is a second, maybe a 3rd-degree connection from you on LinkedIn. Those are the folks that can really give you the inside story about what individuals are like in that company, what your potential future boss might be like, and whether or not this is an environment where people are collaborative or extremely competitive and combative. So I think that looking at connections, whether they're 1st, 2nd, or 3rd-degree connections, is the best way to find out what a company's true culture is like, because you oftentimes don't get that or get the honest story in a job interview. And so I would urge you to do that. Another way to do this also is to go ahead and do searches on these companies, right? And you can see on places like Glassdoor, okay? And Glassdoor, by the way, tends to have a predominance of bad comments about companies, but there is some validity to what's being said. So please don't hesitate to look at that as well. Let's see, here's a question that has come in. LinkedIn is no longer offering a drop-down box where you can change your industry. Any suggestions? Boy, that's news to me, quite honestly, because I know you can in your profile, and I did this just a couple weeks ago, unless this is something that's just happened in the last few days. Typically, you can choose an industry, but I would say if that is the case, then go ahead and you can list some of those industries, in your headline. Definitely put them in the About section of your LinkedIn profile. To me, those are the 2 best places. And of course, you can also include them in your skills down below in the skills and endorsement section of LinkedIn. I would include various industries down there. So you've got plenty of places in which you can put some of these. And if industry matches, by the way, are the easiest way to eliminate qualified candidates for jobs, because if you're not an industry fit and they've already got 4 or 5 other candidates of equal talent, they're going to give an edge to those other individuals. I think you have to accept that. But, you can certainly tout your industry experience in your headline, in the About section and the skill section of your profile. Here's another question here. Not everyone has the same experience at a company. Not everyone experiences the toxicity equally. Absolutely. Everybody is going to be affected in a different way. So I just want each one of you to focus on yourselves and determine, what is that kind of environment where you can perform best, but also understand those environments and those, extraneous factors in a company that really undermine you, that undermine your ability to deliver your best, and environments where you just don't, enjoy coming into work every day. Okay, here's another comment. I was laid off from my former role. There is an opportunity to go back to the same company, but at a lower grade. Okay, a step down or a step backwards. Is this option recommended versus continuing to search for another role more in line with my qualifications? I've been out of work and out of the market for almost a year. All right, you're not alone, first of all. There are a lot of people that are facing this situation. And it's absolutely a personal choice, because the question that nobody can answer is, how long is it going to take you to land your next job? It could be in 2 weeks. It could be in 2 years. Okay, we never know. So, I typically do not recommend that people take a significant step backward to get a job and to just get back in the game, because it could take you 3 or more years to get back to where you were only 12 months ago. And that is something that you'll be kicking yourself for. Now, there is another option. You could take a job today. Let's just say it's for 15% less in compensation, which is not a great thing to move into, but it doesn't mean you stop looking. You can keep looking. And there are oftentimes people who land a job, and within 3-4 weeks, maybe in 2 months, the job they really wanted comes around. I would never encourage somebody to walk away from an opportunity that they really wanted and just couldn't get it in the timely manner that they wanted to receive it. So there are many people who accept a position, and this happens to companies often. They hire somebody into a role, and only a few weeks later, the person comes back to them and say, look, I've received another offer from another company. Now, if you can meet or exceed that offer, I would consider staying. And sometimes companies do, and sometimes companies don't. But the single most important person in a job search is you. You got to look after yourself. And so you've got to make sure that, you make the right decision that is best for yourself. So while I don't like people to take a step backwards in compensation, sometimes 1 step back, 2 steps forward is the way to go. But it really depends, person by person and what your particular, situation is. Here's another question. Is there any questions that I can ask during an interview that would help you determine if the management is not toxic? That's tough. That's tough. And by the way, part of the reason why it's tough to uncover is, how honest are they really going to be with you? Okay. So there are a few questions you could ask to see whether or not there's a potential problem. For example, this position that I'm interviewing for, how long has it been vacant? How long have the people who have held this position prior to me been in this role? And you may find that there's been a revolving door, right? Because if you've had people coming into this role and only staying for 1.5 years, 2 years, that might indicate there's a problem, either with the job, with the person that this job reports to, or maybe the environment in general. Okay, maybe this role doesn't get along well with other supporting organizations that they are trying to help make better. So there are any number of things that that could be contributing to it, but those are just a couple questions that you could ask up front that might become a feeding ground for you to determine whether or not there's a potential problem. But I will go back to Glassdoor. Glassdoor, is a site where there is a preponderance of people who were unhappy in the previous job. It's not always the case, but there are a lot of unhappy folks in a company who left, who've decided to leave comments. And a lot of those have a lot of merit. And they will mention specific departments or specific incidences that have taken place. And you know what? It's not necessary to dismiss them. There may be some, very legitimate things to them. So I would keep an eye on those as well. Let's see here. Here's a question that was emailed in. When you're updating your resume with keywords from the job description, do you also need to update the link in your profile too? Or do you also need to update your profile? I think your LinkedIn profile. It seems to update my resume more often than LinkedIn. So my suggestion here is you update them both. Okay. The LinkedIn profile should be essentially a mirror image of your resume anyway. So anything that you put or insert into your LinkedIn profile, should be accounted for in your anything you put into your resume should be accounted for in your LinkedIn profile. So if you've inserted some new bullet points that are bragging about some of the achievements and accomplishments that you've had in your last job or 2 jobs ago, I would make sure that they're also appearing in your LinkedIn profile. So there's no reason for them to look distinctly different from each other. The big difference between the two is that you can be a lot more verbal in your LinkedIn profile because they just give you so much content space, right? You can have 220 characters in your headline. You can have 2,600 characters in your about section. You can have 100 characters in your titles. You would never go that far in a resume. So the resume is about less is more, right? How do I say all the right things in the fewest words possible? And the LinkedIn profile is almost just the opposite. It's about more is more, because one of the things that drives traffic to your profile is search engine optimization, the matching of keywords and key phrases. And the more of that you have in your profile, the higher you're going to rank when recruiters and hiring managers are going into the back end of LinkedIn looking for qualified candidates to fill this position that I need to get some great candidates for. So you got to play that search engine optimization game. Here's a question. I have rewritten my resume to no avail. I get suggestions from LinkedIn that have nothing to do with what is listed on my profile. I can't speak to LinkedIn in terms of, I'm not sure what kind of suggestions you're referring to. If these are people introduction suggestions that they're making those because those people are aligned supposedly with your profile. They may come from a similar industry. They may come from similar job functions. So if you have a clarification on this, go ahead and chat it back in. But those are the kinds of suggestions that the algorithm typically makes on LinkedIn. They're trying to suggest some jobs that may be aligned with your background and the kind of skills you have. And those skills should be aligned with the skill requirements of the job that is being posted on LinkedIn. So here's another position. How important is it for me to have an applicant tracking system version of my resume? Absolutely essential. You should always have two versions of your resume. One which is attached to the emails that you send out to people, and that's your nice looking resume. But the applicant tracking system version is one that you're going to upload into any online site, whether it's Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Career Builder, where they do not allow you to upload a PDF version of your resume. This is going to be formatted slightly differently. I do a whole hour and a half webinar recording on this very topic. There's 25 rules that you need to make sure you adhere to. And of course, the keyword matching is so important here as well. So absolutely take the ATS version very seriously. Here's another question. I know that there are a lot of different job sites to check out, but which ones do you think are the best? Well, LinkedIn, of course, is a great one. And I have found that there are great jobs on a lesser known site called next.com, NEXXT.com. Some great jobs out there. And there are probably more jobs I'm seeing out in the marketplace today than I saw 12 and 18 months ago, no question. So I think those are two great ones. Obviously, many of the aggregating sites, like LinkedIn, like ZipRecruiter, like Career Builder, like Next.com, they're going to have a lot of redundancy between them. But what I suggest you do is upload your resume onto all of them. Change it or update it, refresh it once a week so that you get higher up in the hierarchy. Make Monday mornings be that day. You just go in, take the resume that you've uploaded, hit the space bar, hit the backspace, save, and now those sites think it's a brand new resume, and as a result, you are going to rank higher when people go in looking at resumes. But I would urge you to get it posted, your resumes posted on many places, and get a lot of jobs coming into your inbox every day based on various keywords, by city, however you want to do this, by industry, because you never know. There might be some that one site has that the other 2 or 3 don't have, and just do it for 2 or 3 sites. And so you just don't want to miss out on a great opportunity. So here's a question about sometimes LinkedIn does not help. How can I get the better opportunity using other networking? I'm not completely sure what the question is asking me here, but I'm just going to ask you to try to clarify this for me, and I'll try to answer it when I see a further definition behind it. Here's another question. I have some outside interests like volunteering and hobbies that I am active in. Are those things appropriate to put in my resume? Absolutely, they are. And I always encourage people, save a section down at the bottom of your resume below your education, and it could be, you can label it whatever you want. Interests and activities, volunteering, charitable causes, or combinations of all of those. what it does, it tells the reader a bit more about you as a person. Because when we're hiring people, we're not hiring just the person based on their skills. We're hiring an individual based on also their personality, what they're like. Do I think they're going to fit in? And oftentimes, when I was hiring, saw that somebody was interested in biking, hiking, photography, it told me a little bit more about how they were rounded as an individual. And if I found that they were involved with charitable causes, Feeding America, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and organizations like that, it told me that they are somebody who's a giver. And who doesn't like givers? It's a great attribute. And so I urge you, it will tell people a bit more about you outside of the work environment. And it also can make you a much more likable candidate, because the person who's reading your resume might put a high value on some of those organizations that you support. And as a result, you now have created a personal connection with this person without ever even opening up your mouth. You've got this before you even walk in the door because they saw it on your resume. They might even ask you about it because they have a personal interest. So please do not dismiss that aspect of your resume. Here's another question. How long should a resume be, and how far back in my experience should I go if I've been in the workforce for 21 years? It's interesting. I have a lot of people tell me that they've been told to never make their resume more than 1 page. And I've had others that have said, I've been told never make it more than 2 pages. And there is no set rule here, with the exception, in my mind, never make it beyond 3. Because if you've been in the workforce, in this case, for 21 years, first of all, you may want to go back to all 21 years, because maybe you had some great jobs in your, early on in your career. And if they add value to your candidacy, don't hide them. I know that some of you may be concerned about age discrimination and bias, but eventually people are going to figure out what your age is. But if you have jobs that go back, 15, 20, 25 years, and require you to go from 2 pages to 3 pages, or 1 page to 2 page, that's okay. Because we want to make sure, and as a coach, I always want to make sure that the candidate is putting their best foot forward, and that they are able to, increase value. And so if there are older jobs that you've had that were fairly long ago, but you think make you a stronger candidate because you did some great things there, you worked for some great companies, had some really wonderful achievements, don't hide them. Here's another question. How does one bid for a higher salary than what they were asking for? Bid for a higher salary than what they are asking for, when really today it's a numbers game. They always ask what your salary is. Do you say you want to give them a range? Okay, in some states, and particularly in the state of Illinois where I am, it's illegal to ask what your salary was at your last job. Absolutely illegal. The governor of Illinois outlawed it about a year ago. I'm sure there are other states that also have that same, rule in place. What I encourage people is you want to delay the salary conversation as long as you can, because the objective in the interview is to get people to fall in love with you, and then salary becomes a non-issue because they've been convinced that you're the right person for this role. We got to have him or her, regardless of the money. So you always want to do whatever you can to avoid the salary conversation. But if it comes up, and a lot of recruiters might bring that up early on, particularly in a phone screen, to weed out people that are overpriced. I think when they ask you, what's your salary expectations, which is different than asking you what you made at your last job, you can say, well, I realize that every job has a range associated with it, and compensation is more than salary. So can you tell me a bit about the total compensation range associated with this role? Because a given job could have a range from 120 to 150 in salary. It could have incentive plans that go from 10% to 30 or 40%. Some may have stock options. Some may have signing bonuses. There's so many different ways, to enhance a person's, ability to make money in a negotiation. So I would throw it back at them and say, can you give me a sense for the salary range and any other, incentives or benefits associated with the role? So again, you want to put it off as long as you can. And the fact is that, we have seen some increase in compensation. I just did a poll, just a few days ago. And 50, my question to everybody was, if you landed a new job in the last 12 months, tell me, was the compensation you got in your new job higher than the total compensation you got in your previous job? Now, 57% of the people said yes. I'm making more money now than I was in the job that I left. Okay. Now, I was hoping that the percentage would be a lot higher, quite honestly, because all I hear is about the company's inability to find great candidates. Now, I know that it's much more difficult, and I've had some great exchanges with some folks that have commented on this. That folks that are already making very large salaries, it may be obviously far more difficult to give those folks a bump in compensation as opposed to somebody who, say, is making less than 100,000. And so it's the answers that I've gotten in this don't identify people's levels of experience or what their compensation was, but obviously that plays into this. Here's another question. My personal experience with the open to work frame as it has given me and many people reaching out on a daily on the daily basis. However, I'm not sure if it really is because of the way of the market. All right, so I'll just I think I know what the question's asking. I'm just going to give you my perspective on the hashtag open to work banner that's in people's profiles. And I encourage all of my clients not to use it. Because what it does is it advertises to everybody that you're currently unemployed. And I've hired many people during the course of my career, as have many of my peers hired thousands of people. And I've never, and I still to this day cannot find anybody who was ever told by their employer, for this next position that you're hiring and looking to fill, please make sure it's somebody who's currently unemployed. It just doesn't work that way. They're always looking for the best candidate, the most likable, the most memorable, the one that's branded them themselves, but the person that hopefully has the best skills for the job. They don't give an advantage to the person who's currently unemployed. And in fact, oftentimes just the opposite happens. There are, unfortunately, a lot of companies that are very prejudicial toward people that are currently unemployed because they have a bias in place that makes them think that people that are currently open to work or unemployed are out of work for a reason. They can't perform as well as people who are currently unemployed. That's very old school. And it's very prejudicial, but it does exist with some companies. And that's why I tell all of the people that I coach, don't include that in your LinkedIn profile, because I think it has the potential to hurt you in the long run. So here's a question. So if you are unemployed, you are not qualified? No, that's not at all what I'm saying. But my feeling is, why advertise to everybody with this open to work hashtag on your profile, which is the most visible part of your LinkedIn profile? I wouldn't put it out there because for some people, it's going to raise a red flag. Let them fall in love with your background and your experience. Okay. They'll see that you're qualified if your profile is well written, but there's no reason to put something out there unnecessarily that is not going to help you. I'm sure there are some people out there that think that putting that banner out there helps them. I'm just not one of them. Because I've seen from plenty of people and hiring managers, and obviously I interact with a lot of them. There is a lot of bias that unfortunately hurts candidates who are telling the world that they're currently unemployed in such an overt way. And that's really my message here. So I've got time for one more question here. At the end of the phone screen, I know that I should be asking a few questions, and I've been doing that. But are there any specific questions that you would recommend that I, make a point of asking? There's just a couple at the end. One is there anything that you wanted to cover during the course of this interview that we just didn't have an opportunity to? Because you want to make sure, particularly in phone screens, are they checking all the boxes? Have you covered all the important things so that you can pass on to the next stage? You also want to understand what's the process and the timeline associated with this role, because you want to get a sense. Is the next step, a week off? Is it a month off? How early are they in this entire interview process? And the next one is is there any reason why you wouldn't move me forward to the next step in the interview process? One of the things that drives, candidates crazy is not knowing. So why not ask? Because they might say, you know what, I haven't heard anything from you about the following 2 topics. Well, great. Now you've got an opportunity to fill that gap, to fill that hole. So, I recommend that you ask at least those 3 questions at the end, and they're always going to give you an opportunity to ask some questions. So please don't hesitate to to put those out there. So I'm just going to wind us up here with just a couple quick reminders. Let me just bring back the final slide here. I'd like you to note that every Monday, 12 to 12:30, I will be here. Okay, and keep an eye on it. You can always just go to my LinkedIn profile at noon, and you'll see this broadcasting live. The next one is going to be on Monday, May 2nd. It will also be a Q&A session, so please don't hesitate to email me your questions in advance. I'll always try to prioritize those. At least it gives me an opportunity to get a sense for what people are wanting to hear about. And again, thanks so much for participating in this. I urge you to take advantage of the NSENG membership. It's free. You're going to get access to all kinds of great people and great resources. And keep an eye on the events that we've got coming up. Thanks so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.